In 1916, the deserts of the Middle East began to tremble. A great revolt erupted against a power that had lasted for centuries. This is the story of the Arab Revolt, a brave resistance that changed world history. For over 400 years, the Ottoman Empire ruled most of the Arab lands, including Hijaz, Syria, Palestine, Iraq, and Egypt, before British control. This rule was initially accepted because the Ottomans were seen as protectors of Islam and guardians of the two holy cities, Mecca and Medina. However, as the empire weakened in the 19th and early 20th centuries, tensions grew between the Ottoman power center in Istanbul and the Arab provinces. One of the main sources of tension was the centralization of power by the Young Turks. But who were they? The Young Turks, Ittihad ve Taraqi Semiyeti or Committee of Union and Progress, were reformists who seized power in the Ottoman Empire through the 1908 revolution. They reinstated the Ottoman constitution and promised modernization, but after a few years, they became authoritarian and highly nationalist. They pushed policies that emphasized direct control from Istanbul over all parts of the empire. Their goal was to unify the multi-ethnic, multilingual empire under a strong, centralized government. The Young Turks replaced local Arab elites with Turkish officials, weakening or removing Arab leaders who had once held influence. Many Arab regions had previously enjoyed a degree of local autonomy or at least involvement in governance. But under the Young Turks, all decisions came from the center without input from local leaders. The legal, tax, and education systems were standardized based on the Turkish model, making older local customs and practices irrelevant. In the military and bureaucracy, Turks held higher and more respected positions, while Arabs were often treated as second-class citizens under the Ottoman system. In addition, Arabs were subject to mandatory military conscription. Many educated Arabs and elites felt alienated and angry because Arab culture and language were marginalized. Arab nationalist organizations such as Al-Fatah and Al-Ahad began to emerge, planning independence from the Ottomans. Arab leaders started seeing Britain and the Western powers as potential allies to help achieve their goals, although they would later be betrayed. As Arab nationalism began to rise in the early 20th century, the Ottoman Empire saw it as a direct threat to imperial unity. This suspicion intensified after the outbreak of World War I in 1914, when the Ottomans joined the Central Powers, Germany and Austria-Hungary. Arab leaders suspected of ties to Britain or France were increasingly targeted. One of the most feared figures by the Arab population was Jemal Pasha, one of the three main leaders of the Young Turks and the military governor of Syria and Hijaz during World War I. Jemal Pasha earned the nickname the Butcher of Syria for his brutal suppression of Arab nationalists. He ordered the arrest and execution of many Arab leaders. All media, newspapers, and suspicious gatherings were censored or shut down. Many Arab activists, teachers, clerics, and youth were arrested merely for being suspected of spreading independence ideas. Arab figures were sentenced on charges of conspiring with the enemy, even if evidence was weak. Some were accused of collaborating with the British, even if they were only discussing autonomy. On May 6, 1916, Jemal Pasha ordered the public execution of dozens of Arab nationalists in Damascus and Beirut. They were hanged in the main squares of the cities, such as Martyrs Square in Beirut, later named to honor the Arab martyrs, including Abdul al-Hamid al-Zahrawi, a doctor and politician from Homs. Shafiq al-Muayyad, a writer and activist. Fahmi al-Husseini, a Palestinian figure. Those not executed were exiled to Anatolia or imprisoned in harsh conditions. Some were conscripted into the military and sent to the front lines as punishment. Arab leaders, especially Sharif Hussein of Mecca, were outraged by the Young Turk oppression and wanted to establish an independent Arab state. And that's when World War I erupted. When World War I broke out in 1914, Britain, part of the Allied powers, saw a golden opportunity to weaken the Ottoman Empire from within. In 1915, a secret agreement began through a series of letters between Sharif Hussein bin Ali, the leader of Hijaz from the Hashemite family, and Sir Henry McMahon, British High Commissioner in Egypt. They exchanged what are now known as the McMahon-Hussein Correspondence. The content of the agreement was: Hussein offered Arab military support against the Ottomans and promised to lead a major revolt from Hijaz. In return, McMahon, on behalf of Britain, promised to recognize the independence of a vast Arab state after the war, including Hijaz, Syria, Palestine, Iraq, and the Arabian Peninsula, excluding a few strategic areas like Aden. However, the borders mentioned were vague, and Britain deliberately used phrases like areas not in conflict with the interests of our allies. Sharif Hussein accepted the offer and history moved forward. In 1916, following Britain's promises, Sharif Hussein launched the Arab Revolt against the Ottomans, aided by his sons such as Faisal and Abdullah, and British advisors like T. Lawrence, who served as Prince Faisal's advisor and guerrilla war strategist. They didn't fight as formal soldiers, but as desert warriors. Strike swiftly, then vanish behind the dunes. They attacked the Hijaz Railway, a critical Ottoman supply line. Arab forces struck over 300 locations, crippling Ottoman control of key transportation routes. They sabotaged tracks, bridges, and stations to block the delivery of weapons and food. The harsh desert and mountains made it hard for Ottoman forces to pursue the highly mobile Arab fighters. They used camels and horses, and knew the terrain better. They also incited local tribes to rebel against Turkish forces, gaining support and shelter from many Arab tribes in Hijaz and the Levant. Meanwhile, Lawrence and British forces provided maps, logistics, and explosives. The attack on Aqaba in 1917 was a daring land assault from an unguarded direction, catching the Ottomans off guard and defeating them. This victory opened the way for Allied forces to advance into Palestine and Syria. Soon after, cities like Jeddah, Taif, and Yanbu were captured. The entry of Arab and British forces into Damascus in 1918 symbolized the fall of Ottoman rule in the Levant. The Ottoman Empire surrendered to the Allies in October 1918, marking the end of its role in World War I. While Sharif Hussein fought for Arab independence, Britain had secretly made another deal. The Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1916. A secret deal between Britain and France, and approved by Russia. That divided Arab lands into colonial zones of influence. France would control Lebanon and Syria. Britain would control Iraq, Jordan, and Palestine. Jerusalem and surrounding areas would be under international control. This meant there would be no Arab independence as promised. Then came the Balfour Declaration of 1917. In it, Britain pledged support to the Jewish community for the establishment of a national home in Palestine. This contradicted the promises made to the Arabs, who also claimed Palestine as part of their future independent state. Arab lands were divided without their knowledge. Instead of independence, the Arabs were colonized again, this time by Britain and France. After the war, Emir Faisal, son of Sharif Hussein, attempted to form an Arab kingdom in Syria, but was overthrown by the French in 1920 at the Battle of Massillon. Britain then appeased the Hashemite family by granting Faisal the throne of Iraq and his brother Abdullah the throne of Jordan, both under British mandate. Meanwhile, Palestine became a British Mandate territory, marking the beginning of a long and ongoing conflict. To this day, the echoes of the 1916 struggle still reverberate throughout the Middle East. The Arab Revolt didn't immediately bring independence, but it was the beginning of a long journey toward sovereignty. History doesn't always follow promises, but the courage of those who rose from the desert demanding dignity and freedom will always be remembered. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more historical stories.